Hello again, welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion of SwiftUI and digging into SwiftUI and stack views. So in our last foray, we created a VStack, right, which is a vertical stack, and then we created a couple text objects. So maybe I like these text objects here, but I want to arrange them horizontally. So the VStack is a vertical stack. You can use an HStack to arrange things horizontally. So there's my horizontal stack, right? You can also put one stack inside of another. So for example, if we're trying to do the calculator example, you might want to do rows, but those rows are going to be arranged vertically, right? So we might have a vertical stack and then have several H stacks or horizontal stacks inside our vertical stack, right? So, there's a couple ways to handle this. We could say make a VStack like this, and then and then now it split my views, right? Because I have two views in here, right? So I could take this view and embed it in the other view, right? Or let me actually undo and show you a trick here, right? A nice thing that they've done in the interface here is that if you select the HStack or VStack and click on it, you'll get this menu, and it gives you some things like some common maneuvers that you might do, right? So what this says is it says embed in ZStack, embed in VStack, and embed in HStack. So actually I want to take this HStack and embed it in a VStack. So I'll choose this option, and then it just does the same thing I did a second ago. It adds this at the top and the closing bracket at the bottom. Side note on those curly brackets, right? We kind of end up with a lot of curly brackets. Sometimes they call this the pyramid of doom because everything gets nested right inside of blocks, right? Keep your eye on the interface, because when you click on a brace, you can see the other brace at the bottom will get a yellow highlight, right? So when I click on this one, I can see that stack ends here and it begins over here, right? Actually, if you double click, it looks like it selects the whole thing. For some reason, oh, there it goes. Yeah, right. So you'll see the yellow there. So I always keep my eye on that, and it really helps me keep my code organized, okay? I'm going to make an extra space there, right? Okay, great. So now we've got an HStack here inside our VStack. Well, what if we wanted to create another row? So we'll add another HStack here and add a block. And now inside here, we could add some more text, right? Actually, let's do something a little different here. Let's add a button this time. So button is a type, right? It's a view that we can use in SwiftUI. And you can see here when I choose button, uppercase B, right? It gives me a few different ways to initialize the button. And when I get to the parentheses here, you can see the parameters. So there's configuration, title key, localized string key, action, title, string protocol, action, and then there's this one that says action and label. I'm going to choose that one. It's the easiest one to work with. So you can see it gives me this little structure here where I've got a button, right? So the parentheses begins here and it ends here, and then there's a action, and this is the code that the button's going to execute, like if we were to tap on it, okay? And then there's a label, and the label has a block in it, and it contains a text object just like we had above here, right? So so this is going to be our our button, right? For some reason my button decided not to show up there. Yeah, there we go. So now my button's showing up. So by default, the button looks like the standard Apple button. So again, like, when it wasn't showing, I clicked the resume button to get the view running again, right? Okay. So from here, you can do anything you want, right? So if I wanted to style this button, I could say like, let's do background. And then background wants a view. So I'm gonna do color, and let's do orange again. So I'll give it an orange color. And then maybe I also want to set the, add some padding, maybe, let's see. So I'll add some padding. I guess it doesn't include the background and padding. You know what we got to do here is we got to use this thing called the frame, right? So I'm going to try that. I'm going to actually, let me put it up here first. I'm going to say frame, and frame gives us a couple options. So frame is how you size things on iOS. There's these two concepts of frame and bounds, right? So we'll just talk about frame now. But frame, if I look here, you can see it gives me width and height, and then it has min width, ideal width, max width. So there's a couple different ways to initialize frame. Let's choose this one with width and height and alignment. So frame lets us set the frame of the box. Here the frame is 100 by 100 and the alignment is center. Okay. You'll notice too in Xcode, when you use the code hints to create something, like I pulled frame up from the menu, it's kind of showing me that these values are kind of highlighted. That means I haven't set them yet. So it kind of filled them in for me. And you can tab through them using the tab key or shift tab to go backwards. And if you hit return, it will like enter that value. So you can see this one hasn't been entered, but that one was entered. So if you see that, like this right here didn't do it, so I'm going to hit return there, right? And that can be a little confusing sometimes, but if I think if I tab, it'll take me to the next value, and then I can type in, let's do like 80 as the height, right? And then center, I'll just hit return and use that center value, okay? So anyway, so there's our frame, there's our background color, right? So frame lets us set width and height. Now let's imagine, like, what if I want to try and round the corners on this? Maybe I'm going to do the width of like 140. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. Let's do 160. We'll make it twice as wide as it is tall. So now to round the corner, we can say dot corner radius, right? Let's try 40. There we go, right? So I'll do half of the height, right? So there's my corner radius. And again, it shows the border there because I'm currently working in the code inside this button, right? If I go up here, this will highlight the HStack, and if I go up into here, it should highlight the text object, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Because that's kind of helpful to know like where you're at, like in your code. So there's my HStack. There's the other HStack right there. Yeah, there it is, right? Okay. So anyway, so there we got corner radius. What else can we set here? Maybe let's set the button text, right? So text object here, let's do dot font, and then we'll set the what is it? It's like systems. I'm still learning these, right? System size, and we'll do let's do 24. I don't know. I think that looks okay. And then, oh yeah, and then I said the color. So the color is the foreground color. There we go, right? And we can do, it's blue is the default. Let's do, oops, I deleted it, right? Let's do white again. It's the foreground color. Okay, there we go. So that's pretty good. Let's try and arrange our elements in kind of in a grid. So I got 3 elements here, and maybe on this HStack here, I want to add a second button. Okay, so try that on your own, and then I'll walk through the solution. Okay, how did it go? Okay, so let's give it a try. So the HStack begins here, and I'm going to click on this thing to see where the curly bracket ends. So I know the HStack begins here and it ends there. So this right here, you can see like this is the button. So the button begins here and ends here. So if I want to add another button to this HStack, it's got to start after this thing and before this one. Okay, so I'll type in button. I'll use the code hints to help me. I'll choose action and label. And we can leave this label here as empty, but then this action as empty, but the label, what we'll want to do is we'll want to set it, right? So let's make this button say, let's make this one save, right? And we'll make this one cancel. Okay, maybe I'll make the cancel button will be gray, I think, as a color. Wait, that's the foreground color. I want to do that as white again, and then we'll do the background color as gray. How about that? And then the save button, let's set some styles here. So we'll start with the frame. And so actually keep in mind that sometimes the order that you set these things matters, right? So, you may have written all the code there and it's not quite doing what you want. So sometimes think about what's happening and you might want to change the order. Like I found if I set the background color after I do the corner radius, sometimes it doesn't get the rounded corners. So usually I always do the corner radius after the background color. Okay. Some things don't matter. Like I think if you set the font, like it doesn't matter where you're at, it always does it, right? So, oh wait, let's back up over this frame right here and see if we can get the code hints to help us. So I'm going to just type frame, then type the parentheses, and then I'm going to choose this option here, width, height, and alignment. Okay, and let's do width of, I think 160 might be too wide. Yeah, that's going to be too wide for my two buttons. Let's do this as 140 and do this one as 140, right? And then this one, height will be 80. Alignment center is okay. And then let's do, we'll just type it all again for practice. We'll say background and color dot, let's do green, right? And then we'll do corner, I gotta spell it right, corner radius. Let's do corner radius of 40 and font of title. Let's do, yeah, the font is a little weird. I'm going to choose system font, right? So I'll do dot system and then size of, and then it says CG float, so you can just type any number in there. Let's do 24 like we did on the other button, right? And then we'll do foreground color of white. Okay, and there we go. So there's our second button, right? Okay, so let's try and do a couple more things, right? So let me give you a problem, right? What I want you to do is make a third row and then make 3 buttons across that row, okay? And then we'll continue this in the next video.